Hello, and welcome back to Speak English Daily.
Hi, everyone. We are very happy to see you here today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Speak English Daily. We are so happy you're spending a little time with us today. If you're enjoying these conversations and you want to improve your English with real, natural discussions, don't forget to subscribe and join our growing community. Every episode is designed to help you speak more confidently in everyday situations. Today, we're talking about something people discuss all the time without even realizing it. Have you ever heard someone say, "That movie is overrated," or "This little cafe is so underrated"? These expressions appear everywhere, and learning how to use them naturally can make your English sound much more fluent.
I love today's topic because everyone has opinions. It doesn't matter where you live or what you enjoy. People are always talking about whether something deserves its popularity. Sometimes we agree with everyone else, and sometimes we feel completely different. That's what makes conversations interesting. If every person had the same opinion about everything, we'd run out of things to talk about very quickly.
That's true. I was thinking about this yesterday because one of my friends told me that a famous coffee shop wasn't worth visiting. Another friend said it was the best place in town. They both visited the same cafe, but they had completely different experiences. It made me wonder why people disagree so much about popular places.
There are many reasons. One person might care about the taste of the coffee, while another person cares more about the atmosphere. Someone might enjoy sitting quietly with a book, while another person prefers a busy place full of conversation. The same cafe can feel wonderful to one customer and disappointing to another. Neither person is wrong because opinions come from personal experiences.
That's an important idea for English learners. When you share an opinion, you don't need to make it sound like a fact. Instead of saying, "This place is bad," you can say, "I don't think it lived up to the hype," or "It wasn't really my favorite." Those expressions sound much more polite.
Yes, and that brings us to today's key words, overrated. When something is overrated, people believe it is better than it really is. Maybe everyone talks about a restaurant, but when you finally eat there, the food tastes ordinary. You expected something amazing because of its reputation, but your experience didn't match your expectations.
So, if I visit a famous restaurant after hearing wonderful reviews and I leave thinking that meal was just average, I could say, "I think it's overrated."
That's a perfect example. You aren't saying the restaurant is terrible, you're simply saying it receives more praise than you believe it deserves.
Then what about underrated?
Underrated is almost the opposite. An underrated place, product, or experience deserves more attention than it gets. Imagine you discover a small neighborhood cafe with delicious coffee, friendly staff, and comfortable chairs. Not many people know about it, but you think more visitors would enjoy it. You could describe it as underrated.
I really like that word because it helps us recommend things to other people. Instead of saying, "Go there," we can explain why we believe it's worth trying. That phrase is useful too. If something is worth trying, it deserves a chance, even if it isn't famous.
Another expression you'll hear often is overhyped. Something becomes overhyped when people talk about it so much that your expectations become incredibly high. Then, after you experience it yourself, you may feel disappointed because it didn't live up to all the excitement.
That's a great example. You could say it was overhyped because the attention around it made you expect something extraordinary. There's another useful expression connected to this idea, live up to the hype. If something lives up to the hype, it really is as good as everyone says. If it doesn't live up to the hype, your expectations were higher than the reality. I like that expression because it reminds us that popularity and quality aren't always the same thing. A place can be famous because of clever advertising or social media, while another place quietly serves wonderful food without becoming famous.
That's why it's helpful to keep an open mind. Popular things aren't always overrated, and quiet places aren't always underrated. Sometimes a famous restaurant really is fantastic. Sometimes a hidden cafe isn't very good. The best approach is to enjoy hearing other people's opinions, while remembering that your own experience may be completely different.
I also think these conversations become much friendlier when we explain our reasons instead of simply saying we agree or disagree. Sharing experiences helps people understand our perspective, even if they don't share the same opinion.
That's one of the best ways to become a stronger English speaker. Learn to describe your experiences clearly, listen carefully to other viewpoints, and remember that different opinions make conversations richer and far more enjoyable.
Speaking of different viewpoints, entertainment is probably the easiest place to see how personal opinions can be. People can watch the same movie together, walk out of the theater, and have completely different reactions. Before we continue, we'd love to hear from you. What's one movie, TV show, or song that you think is overrated or underrated? Tell us why in the comments. I'm always curious to see how different people's opinions can be.
I enjoy reading those conversations because they remind me that there isn't always one correct answer. Sometimes a blockbuster movie earns billions of dollars and receives glowing reviews, but a few viewers still leave feeling disappointed. That doesn't mean they're trying to be negative, it simply means the movie didn't connect with them in the same way.
I used to think if a movie became incredibly successful, it had to be amazing. I almost felt nervous about admitting when I didn't enjoy something everyone else loved.
Many people feel that way. There's often a little pressure to agree with the majority. Imagine your friends spend weeks talking about a new film. They say it's unforgettable and encourage you to watch it as soon as possible. After finally seeing it, you think it was entertaining, but nothing more. You might worry that saying so will make you seem difficult.
That's true. Sometimes people don't want to sound different.
One useful expression is, "It wasn't really for me." That sounds much softer than saying it was terrible. You can also say, "I can understand why people enjoy it, but it didn't have the same effect on me." Those sentences show respect for other opinions while still expressing your own.
I like those examples because they leave room for conversation instead of ending it. If I simply say, "That movie was bad," people may become defensive. If I explain my reasons calmly, they are more likely to share their perspective too.
That's the goal of a good discussion. Entertainment isn't a competition. We don't need to convince everyone to agree with us. We simply explain what we enjoyed and what we didn't.
Speaking of discussions, TV series are another interesting example. Have you ever watched an award-winning show and wondered why everyone was talking about it?
More than once. I remember watching a famous series that won several awards. The acting was excellent, and the production looked beautiful. I respected the work that went into making it, but I found the story a little predictable. After a few episodes, I could guess what would happen next.
That's a great vocabulary word. Predictable doesn't always mean something is bad. It simply means the story follows a path you expect.
Right. Some people actually enjoy predictable stories because they're relaxing. Others prefer surprises. That's why two viewers can honestly have opposite opinions on the same show.
I once stopped watching a series because I thought it moved too slowly. My sister loved that same series because she enjoyed the detailed conversations between the characters. We both watched the same episodes, but we paid attention to different things.
That's another helpful lesson. When giving your opinion, explain what matters to you. Maybe you enjoy fast action, meaningful dialogue, realistic characters, or creative endings. Those details help people understand your viewpoint.
Music creates the same kind of discussion. Every year, there's a viral song that seems to play everywhere. You hear it in cafés, shopping centers, videos, and even at family parties. After hearing it 20 times, some people still love it, while others become tired of it.
I've noticed that too. Sometimes a song becomes popular because it's simple and easy to remember. Other people prefer songs with deeper lyrics or more unusual melodies. Neither preference is better, they're simply different tastes.
That's why I often say I have mixed feelings about certain songs. Maybe I enjoy the melody, but I don't really like the words. Or perhaps I admire the singer's voice, but the song isn't memorable for me.
Have mixed feelings is a very useful expression. It tells people that your opinion isn't completely positive or completely negative. Real life is full of opinions like that.
Speaking of singers and actors, celebrities often receive strong reactions too. Some people admire a celebrity because of their talent, while others focus on their public image. It's interesting how quickly opinions can change.
That's another reminder that popularity doesn't always tell the whole story. A celebrity may become famous because of one successful project, while another talented person receives much less attention. Success and talent are connected sometimes, but not always in equal amounts.
You know, this conversation is changing my perspective a little. Earlier, I said I used to believe successful entertainment had to deserve all its praise. Now I'm realizing that's a very simple way to look at it. Different people value different things, so it's natural that opinions won't match.
I think that's a healthy conclusion. Instead of asking whether everyone should love the same movie or singer, it's more interesting to ask why people respond differently. Those conversations help us understand each other better.
They also make our English stronger because we're practicing respectful disagreement instead of arguing. That's a skill we can use far beyond entertainment.
And the next time someone recommends a movie, TV show, or song, you don't have to promise you'll love it. You can simply thank them for the recommendation, give it a fair chance, and form your own opinion after you've experienced it yourself.
I like that idea of giving something a fair chance before deciding. The same thing happens whenever people go shopping or choose a place to eat. We often hear recommendations before we've even seen the menu or looked at the prices, and those recommendations can influence our expectations without us noticing.
They certainly can. Food and shopping are full of opinions because everyone values different things. Some people want the highest possible quality, while others care more about convenience or price. That's why conversations about restaurants, coffee, and brands are always interesting.
Let's start with coffee, because it seems to create endless debates. Have you noticed how some people happily spend a lot of money on one cup of coffee every morning?
I have, and I don't automatically think they're making a bad decision. The important question is what they're paying for. If someone only wants caffeine, then an expensive drink may seem overpriced. But if they enjoy the atmosphere, friendly service, comfortable seating, and a quiet place to work, they might feel the experience is worth every cent.
That's a good point. We often focus only on the product itself instead of the whole experience. Two people can buy the same drink and judge it differently because one person stayed for an hour reading a book while the other rushed in and left after 2 minutes.
That's why the word overpriced should be used carefully. Instead of saying, this cafe is overpriced, you could say, I think it's a little overpriced for what I personally need. That sounds more balanced because you're explaining your own expectations instead of speaking for everyone.
I also like the word affordable. It's much kinder than saying something is cheap. Cheap sometimes sounds negative because it can suggest poor quality. Affordable simply means the price is reasonable for many people.
That's an excellent distinction. Imagine two restaurants serving similar meals. One charges 3 times more because it's located in a famous neighborhood. The other is a small family-owned restaurant a few streets away. Many people would call the second restaurant more affordable, even if the food is just as delicious.
That reminds me of a place I visited while traveling. Everyone recommended a famous restaurant that always had a long line outside. I waited nearly an hour for a table because I assumed it had to be amazing. The meal was enjoyable, but later that evening I found a tiny restaurant with only a few customers. The food there surprised me even more.
that's the perfect opportunity to use another useful expression, hidden gem. A hidden gem is something wonderful that not many people know about. It doesn't receive much attention, but the people who discover it are often happy they did.
I love that expression because it sounds positive and encouraging. Instead of criticizing popular places, you're celebrating somewhere special that deserves more recognition.
That's a healthier way to look at recommendations. Rather than arguing about whether famous restaurants deserve their popularity, we can also share places that have impressed us quietly.
Shopping creates similar conversations, especially when luxury brands enter the discussion. Some people dream of owning designer clothes or expensive accessories, while others think paying that much doesn't make sense.
That's another topic where there isn't one correct answer. A luxury product may use high-quality materials and excellent craftsmanship. At the same time, part of the price may come from the brand's reputation. Whether that's worthwhile depends on what each customer values.
So if someone buys a designer jacket because they admire the design and expect it to last for many years, that decision could make sense for them.
Yes. Another person might buy a simpler jacket that offers similar comfort at a much lower price. They may feel they received better value for money. Both shoppers considered different priorities before making their choice.
Value for money is such a useful phrase. It doesn't always mean buying the cheapest item. It means feeling satisfied because what you received matched the amount you paid.
That's an important difference. Sometimes a low-priced product breaks after a few weeks, while a more expensive one lasts for years. In that case, the higher-priced item may actually provide better value for money over time.
Fast food creates lively discussions too. Some people love it because it's quick, familiar, and convenient. Others would rather spend extra time preparing a meal at home.
Convenience has real value, especially after a long day. Still, many people believe homemade food offers better quality because they can choose fresh ingredients and control how everything is prepared.
My grandmother always says that a simple meal cooked with care can be more memorable than an expensive dinner at a fashionable restaurant. When I visit her, I understand what she means. The food reminds me of family gatherings, and those memories become part of the experience.
That's something restaurants can't always provide. Food isn't only about taste. It's connected to emotions, traditions, and the people we share it with. Those personal memories often influence our opinions more than we realize.
I suppose that's another reason conversations about food can become so passionate. People aren't only discussing ingredients or prices, they're talking about experiences that matter to them.
And that's why it's helpful to ask questions instead of making assumptions. If someone recommends an expensive cafe or a luxury brand, you can ask what they liked most. Was it the quality, the service, the atmosphere, or simply the memories they created there? Understanding the reason behind an opinion often teaches us much more than the opinion itself.
I really like that idea of asking someone why they recommend something. It makes the conversation much more interesting. The same approach works when people talk about travel, because asking whether a place is good isn't always enough. It's usually better to ask what made the experience special.
That's true. If someone tells me, you have to visit this city, my next question is always, what did you enjoy most? Their answer tells me much more than a simple recommendation. Maybe they loved the local food. Maybe they enjoyed the architecture, or maybe they met friendly people. Those details help me imagine the experience.
I also think many travelers make the mistake of expecting every famous attraction to be life-changing. When expectations become too high, even a beautiful place can feel a little disappointing.
Expectations have a powerful influence. Sometimes we spend months looking at beautiful travel photos online. Everything appears perfect. Then we arrive and discover long lines, noisy streets, or rainy weather. The place itself hasn't changed, but our imagination created an impossible standard.
That's why I try to describe my experiences instead of giving short opinions. Instead of saying the place was overrated, I might say it was much more crowded than I expected, but I still enjoyed the view. That gives a much clearer picture.
That's excellent English because you're explaining your experience rather than making a broad judgment. The word crowded is especially useful. It simply describes a place with many people. Depending on the situation, crowded can be exciting or exhausting.
I remember visiting a famous square during a holiday festival. It was incredibly crowded. At first, I thought I wouldn't enjoy it because it was difficult to walk around. Then I noticed musicians performing, families laughing together, and colorful lights everywhere. The large number of people became part of the atmosphere instead of ruining it.
That's a great example of how first impressions can change. Your first impression was that the crowd would make the visit unpleasant. Later, you realized it actually added energy to the celebration.
First impression is another phrase English learners should remember. We often use it when describing our initial thoughts before we know something well.
Absolutely. You might say, my first impression of the city was that it felt too busy, but after a few days, I discovered quiet neighborhoods that I really enjoyed.
Speaking of busy places, do you prefer large cities or small towns when you travel?
It depends on my mood. Sometimes I enjoy the excitement of a busy city because there's always something happening. You can visit museums, try different restaurants, and explore interesting neighborhoods all in one day. Other times, I want the opposite. After a stressful month, a peaceful town sounds much more attractive.
I understand that. I used to believe exciting vacations had to include a long list of famous attractions. Recently, I've started appreciating slower trips, where I spend more time walking, talking to local people, and enjoying quiet surroundings.
That's one of the advantages of travel. Our preferences often change over time. Years ago, I wanted to visit every popular attraction as quickly as possible. Now, I don't mind skipping a few popular places if it means having a more relaxing experience.
Beaches are another interesting example. Some travelers dream of visiting the most famous beaches because they've seen beautiful photographs online. Others prefer smaller beaches where there are fewer people.
I usually enjoy peaceful beaches where I can hear the waves without too much noise. Of course, someone else might find that a little boring. They may prefer beaches with music, sports, restaurants, and lots of activity. Neither choice is better, they're simply different travel styles.
Theme parks create similar conversations. Some people think they're one of the highlights of a vacation, while others don't enjoy waiting in long lines for rides.
I think theme parks are worthwhile if you enjoy the atmosphere as much as the attractions themselves. If you're laughing with friends, watching performances, and enjoying the decorations, the day can feel complete even if you don't ride every attraction.
That's a helpful word too. Worthwhile means something is worth your time, effort, or money. Even if everything isn't perfect, the overall experience can still be worthwhile.
Museums also receive very different reactions. Some visitors could spend an entire afternoon looking at paintings or historical objects. Others prefer outdoor activities and only stay for a short visit.
I wasn't very interested in museums when I was younger. I thought they would all be quiet and serious. Then I visited one that included interactive exhibits where visitors could touch objects, solve puzzles, and learn through games. That experience completely surprised me.
It's interesting how one positive experience can change an opinion. That's another reason we should avoid making quick judgments. One museum, one beach, or one city can't represent every place in the world.
One of my favorite travel memories actually came from a quiet town, not listed in most guidebooks. There weren't many famous attractions, but the streets were beautiful. The local bakery was wonderful, and the people greeted visitors with warm smiles. It became one of the most memorable stops on my trip.
I think those unexpected discoveries often stay with us longer than the places everyone talks about. Famous destinations can certainly be enjoyable, but sometimes the moments we remember most happen in places we never planned to visit. Keeping an open mind allows every journey to become its own unique story, and that's often the greatest reward of traveling.
I think that's a wonderful thought, because it doesn't only apply to travel. It also reminds me of everyday habits. People often have strong opinions about the way others live, work, or spend their free time. Sometimes those opinions are helpful, but other times we judge too quickly without understanding another person's situation.
I agree. Everyday habits probably create more discussions than almost anything else because they're part of our daily lives. We hear advice everywhere. Wake up before sunrise, read a certain number of books every year, exercise every morning, stay away from social media, follow the perfect routine. After hearing all of those messages, it's easy to believe there's only one right way to live.
Let's start with waking up early because it's often presented as the secret to success. Many successful people talk about beginning their day before everyone else, and that inspires a lot of people to change their schedules.
There's certainly nothing wrong with enjoying an early morning, but we should remember that different people have different lives. A nurse working through the night, a parent caring for a baby, or someone with unusual working hours may have a completely different routine. Their schedule doesn't automatically make them less productive.
That's a great example of looking at something from another perspective. We often compare ourselves with people whose lives are completely different from our own.
Perspective is one of today's most useful words. It simply means the way someone sees or understands a situation. When we understand another person's perspective, we're usually less likely to criticize them unfairly.
Reading books is another habit that people talk about all the time. I love reading, but I don't think everyone has to enjoy the same kinds of books or even read in the same way.
I feel the same. Some people read printed books, others prefer electronic books or audiobooks because they spend hours driving or commuting. The important thing is learning something or enjoying the experience, not competing over how many books you finish.
Social media creates even stronger opinions. Some people describe it as a complete waste of time, while others say they've learned useful skills, discovered creative ideas, or stayed connected with friends because of it. That's why it's difficult to describe something as completely good or completely bad. Social media is a tool. How helpful it becomes often depends on the way each person uses it. Someone who spends hours comparing themselves with others may have a negative experience. Another person may use the same platform to learn languages, follow educational channels, or build a business.
That's another reminder not to overlook the details. If we ignore the full picture, we may reach conclusions too quickly.
I like that you used the word overlook. It means failing to notice or consider something important. In conversations, it's helpful to avoid overlooking facts that might explain another person's choices.
Exercise trends are another interesting topic. Every few months, it feels as though there's a new workout that everyone says is the best. One month, people are talking about running, then strength training becomes popular, and later everyone is discussing another fitness trend.
The funny thing is that the most effective exercise is usually the one you'll continue doing. Someone who enjoys swimming doesn't need to force themselves to run simply because running is fashionable. Personal preference matters much more than following every new trend.
Preference is another useful word because it simply describes what someone likes more than another option. Saying, "It's my preference," sounds much friendlier than saying, "This is the only correct choice."
I think learning English teaches us that lesson very well. Some students enjoy watching videos. Others prefer reading articles, listening to podcasts, or practicing conversations with friends. If a method helps someone improve consistently, it's probably a good choice for them.
That's something I hope our listeners remember. Don't compare your learning journey with everyone else's. Instead, appreciate the progress you're making, even if it feels slow. Every conversation, every new word, and every mistake helps you become a stronger speaker.
I couldn't agree more. Language learning isn't a race. It's a long journey filled with small improvements that become noticeable over time.
Looking back at everything we've discussed today, I notice one common idea. Whether we're talking about restaurants, movies, travel, shopping, or daily habits, our opinions become much more interesting when we explain the reasons behind them.
That's true. Instead of saying something is overrated, you can explain why it didn't meet your expectations. Instead of calling something underrated, you can describe what impressed you. Those extra details help people understand your thinking instead of simply hearing your conclusion.
We also practiced many useful expressions today. You learned words like overrated, underrated, overhyped, disappointing, predictable, affordable, worthwhile, memorable, perspective, preference, and appreciate. We also talked about expressions such as hidden gem, value for money, have mixed feelings, live up to the hype, and judge for yourself. These are phrases you'll hear in everyday English conversations, so don't be afraid to start using them yourself.
One final piece of advice is to stay curious. The next time someone recommends a movie, a restaurant, a city, or even a new habit, listen carefully before deciding whether you agree. Ask questions, hear their story, and then judge for yourself after you've had your own experience.
That's one of the best parts of learning English. It's not only about building vocabulary or improving grammar, it's also about learning how to communicate with kindness, respect, and confidence. When we understand that every opinion comes from a different experience, conversations become more enjoyable and much more meaningful.
Thanks for spending this time with us today. We hope this conversation gives you more confidence the next time you share your opinions in English. Keep practicing these expressions in real conversations. Appreciate different perspectives, and remember that the best discussions aren't about proving someone else wrong. They're about understanding one another a little better while continuing to learn together.